How many snaps did they run in the 14 personnel?
That's only for us.
100% of the snaps.
What's going on, guys? Welcome into 14P Fantasy. I am your host, Justin Wright. I am joined by the other half of 14P, Marco. What's going on?
Not too much, man. Excited to talk running backs, and I have to save us because you tweeted out slightly but importantly incorrect Dynasty rankings today.
Yeah. If you follow us on Twitter, you're going to see this video and be like, wait a minute, this completely
it released like within 24 hours of each other. How has this happened?
We made changes to the ranks. We updated them. Oh my gosh, things changed.
Justin messed up. He's wrong. Oh,
There it is. Behind you. Definitely not behind you. Yeah. So, all right, guys, we'll get into it. What changed? But before we do rankings, we have the Patreon page. Check that out, guys. For as little as $2 over there, you can donate, help support the show. If you go up to even just $5 a month, you get all of our Dynasty rankings, our rookie rankings that are tiered. Our Dynasty rankings are also tiered. You get early access to rookie profiles. You'll get in-season ranks, preseason ranks. You're going to get a whole mess of crap for just $5, $9. You get an extra, Dynasty team breakdown from us for you. So check that out, guys. For
also,
Patreon, you got to be
also, if you've got some friends that like fantasy football, tell them to subscribe to our Patreon too, because if we get enough subscribers to our Patreon, we might drop a draft kit. Justin is like, no, let's wait till we get to the number we get, because it is a lot of work. So I want to make a draft kit for you guys. So get some friends, have them all become patrons, and it'll be great.
Yeah, this is good. We're having a long introduction on just what's going to be a long-ass video. Subscribe to the YouTube.
12 minutes of content.
Subscribe,
that's it, right?
Subscribe to the YouTube. Follow us on Twitter, Justin_14P, Marco_14P, 14P_fantasy. There's a whole mess of stuff over there. So check us out on Twitter. All right, Marco. Are you ready to actually get into this?
Let's do it. Let's start knocking out these running backs.
Number one on the list. I don't think this is going to surprise anybody. It's it's Jonathan Taylor. Get out of the way of the overlay. We are looking at Jonathan Taylor as our bona fide RB1 in Dynasty.
Yep.
I mean, what is there really to say about Jonathan Taylor, Marco, that everybody has not already said?
I mean, there isn't. There's nothing that you can say that hasn't been said. He's going to get the Derrick Henry workload, but the caveat is a lot of that work is going to also be seen through receptions, I think. Not like CMC levels, but he's going to get enough receptions to make him even elevated from, I think, what we have been accustomed to with Derrick Henry. So he's the running back one until the Colts decide they don't want to block for him anymore. But their O-line is still great too. So it's just like there's nothing that can remove him from that spot except for injury.
Right. The age, the upcoming extension. Again, he's only going to be in his third year. So we have at least 2 more seasons of him on a rookie deal. He's going to get an extension beyond that. Yeah. There is a real chance he is the rookie RB, or the Dynasty RB1 for the next 2 to 3 years. And that's almost unheard of.
Assuming health, yeah.
Yeah, assuming health. I mean, that's always the concern. But even CMC was, the RB1 for almost 3 seasons, and that's, I think, what we're going to see with Taylor. If you have Jonathan Taylor, good job. I mean,
yeah, you did it.
Yeah, well done. Congrats. No, there's really not a whole lot to say. He's not an interesting one to discuss. Everybody saw this one coming.
Yep.
Number 2 is where we immediately disagree. For us, I ceded this one to Marco. Najee Harris comes in as our RB2. Marco, why is he your number 2 over, a CMC, Swift, Javonte Williams for some people somehow? So why is he landing at 2 for you?
Yeah, so when it came down to 2, it was either, to me at least, it was either Najee Harris or DeAndre Swift. So CMC wasn't really in that conversation as far as Dynasty goes, because when you're looking at Dynasty running backs, one of the top things that you have to think about, and I know some people go over the top when they look at age, but running back, it actually does matter. And it actually does matter when you're delineating between like running back 2 or running back 5. Like Those are the things that actually matter at that point. So I think Najee Harris gets a little bit of the bump over CMC because of the fact that he's 23 and he's not already starting to have evidence of breaking down like we have seen from CMC. But when it comes to talent, I think Najee Harris is one of the most talented running backs in the NFL. I think pure talent, not fantasy-wise, he's in my top 5 conversation as well. So I think when you look at what he is to this team, where he is going to be the workhorse back, I don't care if they add a running back in the offseason. I don't care if they draft a running back. We got some of those comments on Twitter, and I really just don't think it matters. He's a first-round running back who came out of an elite program, who played very, very well. Sure, he wasn't super efficient. We always knew he wasn't going to be efficient behind the offensive line, so I'm not worried about that. He got the work. He's going to continue to see the work, even if he doesn't see 350 to 400 touches. As long as he sees in that 300 touch range, which I think the Steelers just have shown they will do when they find the guy they like at running back.
Guaranteed almost.
He's a top 3, top 4 running back. And I think because of the fact that they're going to add a quarterback, I don't care who their quarterback is, they're going to at least be Big Ben. I would be surprised if he isn't, if they bring in a quarterback who isn't that, because Big Ben was atrocious. So I like Najee Harris over a guy like DeAndre Swift even, because I think overall he's going to probably see similar to more work, and I think he's a more complete player who's shown that so far at least he can last the full season with an insane workload.
Yeah. And the notes I have with Najee, he is a volume play. I mean, and that's fine. That's not a bad thing. He's very similar to Zeke, where Zeke has really never been the guy that's going to explode for 35, 40 points. But Zeke is always going to be between 15 and 25. Well, that's why Zeke was so highly touted. I've been saying Najee is the same exact deal. And Najee and Zeke are both extremely talented running backs. The only concern could be, heaven forbid they start taking away work because a quarterback breaks out and now Najee's used less. But if that's the case,
he's going to be used in the passing game.
His efficiency is going to increase. He's going to still be utilized in the pass game. And when you look at it right now, out of every running back in the NFL, he was 16th in stacked front rate. That has the potential to drop. He could face lighter fronts without Big Ben there, just because average depth of target was as low as I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So that efficiency, potentially the offensive line eventually improving. It can't stay this terrible forever.
Right.
So there are things that could go in his favor. I don't know if he's talent-wise a top 5 running back. I think he is a very good running back, but I think there are other guys on raw talent I like, a lot more than Najee. But again, the situation, the draft capital, the talent, it's tough to rank him a lot lower than 2, 3, or like even 4 at the very bottom.
And if this team gets even 5% better, the whole volume play thing isn't even relevant. Like, he doesn't need all of that volume.
Exactly.
If that offensive line gets like one really good offensive piece,
Yep. All right, moving on to number 3, my personal RB2. It is DeAndre Swift.
Yep.
And DeAndre Swift, what happened last season, just before we get into what's going to moving forward, was the dumbest argument I have ever seen. It was at first,
horrible.
It was, oh my God, Jamal Williams signed there. It's over. He's going to get the goal line work. No, Jamal Williams is not good. 2, it was, well, the offense is going to be terrible. As if having Dan Campbell, who came from the Saints, and Anthony Lynn coming over from the Chargers, those offenses are dictated by elite running backs that are utilized in the pass game. It was tailor-made for DeAndre Swift to succeed.
Yes.
And before getting hurt, those first 11 games, he was a top 10 running back in points per game. He was a top 5 running back in fantasy because he hadn't broken down yet. And now you have the offensive coordinator and the head coach coming back. Jared Goff has proven he's okay throwing to the running back. His role is as safe as you can find in fantasy. The only question is health. And I don't knock running backs for that, because every single running back in the NFL pretty much carries the same risk of getting banged up one way or the other. So DeAndre Swift, I'm not overly concerned. You just look at what he did this season. He has more games over 20 points than he did under 15. He is very similar to CMC, except he just hasn't stayed healthy, which is what CMC did, obviously, early in his career. So for me, he is my personal RB2. I understand putting Najee over him, though. I totally get that aspect.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, he's RB3 for me. So it's like he's not falling far for all of the reasons you said. And I think it's so funny that like people thought, that Jamal Williams would take the goal line stuff, because when you look at DeAndre Swift, when you actually just break down the player,
yes,
as a runner, he is amazing. He's a better runner than he is a pass catcher.
He's so good.
People just saw like, oh, his size, and they saw that he could catch the ball, and they're like, oh, so he's Austin Eckler. He's really good, but he should catch the ball a ton. And while he should, because he's very good at it, he is a much better runner than he is a passer. There is no world where Jamal Williams or pass catcher, passer. Who knows? Maybe. I mean, I'm assuming he's a better runner than passer.
He could be better.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Better than golf. But I think like to say that Jamal Williams is even close to a runner that's going to threaten consistently DeAndre Swift is insane. It's insane.
I'm going to draft him early. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it until it doesn't make sense. And
you were getting him in the third round of drafts.
I got him in the fourth. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, end of the third, early fourth round consistently, which is insane.
I love it. All right. So I think, again, it's not clear. We're very in on DeAndre Swift. Go get DeAndre Swift in leagues. He's the most
undervalued. They're just so fun.
He's the most undervalued top 2 or 3 running back in Dynasty that I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I was offered Swift in the 101 for Jonathan Taylor. I accepted it because, I mean, it's just, you don't find that gap, that kind of talent. It's ridiculous.
Right. Well, and I'll just add really quickly.
You didn't see 4.
The Lions are probably going to add a wide receiver, which is only going to help DeAndre Swift.
It's going to help the offense as a whole.
Yep.
That's it. Well, you saw it. It's 4. It's Christian McCaffrey. He is up here purely based on what he brings when he is on the field.
Yeah.
I don't think his career is over in terms of injury. He's had a bad 2 seasons in terms of injury luck. Absolutely. But in the 5 games he actually played, he averaged 24 points a game. He is still the most elite option in all of fantasy football, and it's not close. The only reason he's not RB1 is he's getting up there in age now. I mean, you can't deny that. And he's strung together 2 pretty unhealthy seasons back to back. So it does give you concern when you mix it with age. But yeah. I mean, those are the only things you can knock him for. He is still the best running back in fantasy football on a year-to-year basis, at least.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it earlier, how we don't really knock running backs for injury, but CMC has played 10 of 33 games in the 10 of the last 33 games.
You have to factor that.
You have to take that into consideration. The fact that he's even at 4 with that kind of playing time shows you what kind of talent he is.
Yeah,
he's easily the most versatile running back in the NFL. I think Taylor could get close, but he's just not to CMC's level. And so I think that's the reason he's 4. He's 26, or he's going to be 26, I think, during the 2022 season. Yeah. So he's one of those guys where efficiency could win out. He could end up seeing a lot more passing work than he does rushing work for the rest of his career. And that's okay, especially if you play in PPR format. So I like Christian McCaffrey in Dynasty still. And honestly, there's a lot of people who are starting to, let him drop it lower and lower in their rankings. And so we were probably going to see a Dynasty startup situation, or maybe Dynasty trades where people really get to capitalize on the last year or 2 of Christian McCaffrey really blowing up.
Yep. And before you guys get it, come after us in the comments. Well, Swift has missed time with injury. He's missed 6 games in the last 2 years, or 7, with the 17-game season. It's not the same,
less than a third of the game.
It's not the same magnitude. So again, both are, whatever. It is what it is. But CMC at 4, talent is age and health are the only thing keeping him out of number 1. If he was 25 and fully healthy, I'd still be putting him at 1, to be honest. But he's not. Moving on. This is where I think rankings get interesting. Some people have Javonte at 4, and I think you do, Marco. But
I have him at 4. I have CMC at 5.
So I will let you go on Javonte because, I love Javonte. He's still 5 here, but I know you're higher on him slightly than I am.
Yeah, and I think this kind of goes back to a little bit what I was talking about with the Najee Harris conversation. The reason I have him above CMC is I think he's a phenomenal player. I think right now, if CMC is healthy, it's not close. CMC is better. He's in he's a better player. He's a more versatile player. I think Javonte Williams is kind of on the verge of a true breakout. We got to see what's going on with the Denver offense, whether it be the quarterback situation, whether it be the Melvin Gordon situation. Is he going to come back? There's a lot of questions around Javonte, but for me, the reason I have him at 4 over CMC is he just turned 21. And age is a very relevant thing, like
it's ridiculous.
He was the youngest guy coming out. He was Cam Akers coming out, like that age, he was one of the youngest guys coming out. And so he's heading into a season where he'll turn 22 at the very end of the season in 2022. So I think that age difference is just so significant that if you are in a startup draft, I am for sure taking Javonte Williams over CMC just because you're going to have just more longevity for your team. And even if you're trying to win now, you're not losing a ton of value from CMC to Javonte. I think CMC is probably a top 5 to top 8 running back this year if he is dealing with what he's been dealing with.
I was saying,
and I think Javonte is probably top 12, top 15, depending on whatever happens with that offense. Like if they get Aaron Rodgers and Melvin Gordon doesn't come back, Javonte Williams could fight for the number 1 running back. He genuinely could.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's too early to I think, put a mark on redraft rankings. I think we agree there's 1,000 things that are going to change between January 26th, 27th.
Right. So his age is what gives him the bump for me in Dynasty.
Absolutely. In a startup, I'm taking Javonte for sure because, again, I'll always lean younger running backs in startups than I do in, in-season rankings for established leagues. There's a difference. There's a clear difference. Yeah, but
totally.
Javonte Williams is just a freak talent. I mean, there's no way to deny that. We all know he had a semi-limited workload this season. He split opportunity share 50% down the middle with Melvin Gordon, and he was 6th in the league in yards created while splitting work.
Did he lead the league in breakaway runs this year, or he was in that top 10 conversation?
No, so he was not there. The stat you're thinking of is forced missed tackles per carry. That's where he led the NFL. And the one game we saw without Melvin Gordon, the one game he played over 60% of snaps, he scored 29.8 points. That is the type of ceiling you get with Javonte Williams if he is given, a true workhorse workload. Do I expect him to have 30 plus opportunities per game like he did in that one? Absolutely not. That's obscene. No. But the fact that they are willing to give him that type of work says a lot. So, I mean, it does also, it's worth mentioning, new staff, new everything. So I think that even makes it less likely that Melvin Gordon's back, which again is a huge bump for Javonte. We're ranking him basically as if Melvin Gordon is not coming back. I'm going to proceed that way until I learn otherwise. And I think that's why he's still RB5 for us.
Yeah, exactly. And I will say, so I mean, even if Melvin Gordon comes back, his dynasty ranking isn't taking much of it. He still saw 256 opportunities.
Yeah, that's a lot.
In a season where he shared with Melvin Gordon, and he shared, like you said, pretty evenly with Melvin Gordon. I think there's a lot.
He's going to get 500 next year.
Right. 500. No, but I think if Melvin Gordon does leave, he could see 300 to 350 touches. And if that's the case, it's game over for what we've seen so far from him.
Yeah, it'll be over 300. All right, moving on. And this is where I jacked up the rankings on Twitter.
Yes,
I had Gibson at 4, and that's incorrect. Oops. Antonio Gibson comes in as RB6, and Antonio Gibson this time last year was pretty close to being ranked right here. And a lot of people expected him to ascend to that.
I had him at my RB6 last year.
Right, exactly. Marco was full bore all in. I was not. And I do think if he had been healthy this whole season, you would have seen an entirely different Antonio Gibson. From the bye week on, you were looking at just under 17 points a game, which would have been RB10 on the year. He has that top 10 upside, top 10 ceiling. He did that with Taylor Heineke. He did it with J.D. McKissick while he, again, was still banged up, healthier, but still hurt. Basically,
but even put all that aside, we don't even need to say from the bye week on. The entire season in PPR, he was the running back 12. In non-PPR, he was the running back 11 with a fractured shin.
He is phenomenal. The only question, it's similar to Javonte, is who's the quarterback? What is the offense going to look like? And is it going to be good enough to keep him on the field? And again, very similar to Javonte, we don't know what J.D. McKissick's doing in free agency. If McKissick is gone in free agency, Antonio Gibson could have a terrifyingly large workload. You finally, after like 3 years of saying he's going to get the CMC workload, he could finally actually get that. And if he does, he has the makings of a guy that can finish inside the top 5 at running back. Again, he's only in his 3rd year, same as Taylor, same as Swift. So, I mean, he's a lot cheaper than I think what his actual dynasty ranking should be.
I mean, totally. So even in this season with the fractured shin, he saw 310 opportunities. He scored 10 touchdowns. I think genuinely, whether J.D. McKissick comes back or not, he's kind of in that 8 to 10 touchdown range for me.
Yeah,
pretty much as a lock. And if he sees, even if his touches don't increase, he stays at 310 touches, he could be a top 5 running back. He genuinely could be. Because
310 with missed games.
So he technically played in 16 games this year.
Yeah, but he left. He had that weird stretch where he was playing under 50% of snaps and wasn't fully healthy right before the bye.
Yeah, so I'll give you some numbers. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There was
counting.
There's 4.
Just counting on screen. Just no notes ahead of time. I like it.
Well, no, there was, but I have notes. But this is just interesting because I like you said, he didn't play over 50%. There was 4 games where he played under 50% this year. Obviously, he missed an entire game, and then of the games that he did play at least 50%, he only had 2 games where he was over 65% of the snaps. And so I think that's one of the things that you have to look at. Like if J.D. McKissick goes, he's gonna probably play 65 to 80% of the snaps.
Yeah, I mean, there's potential they bring someone else in to fill that role.
That's fair.
Maybe it's a Giovanni Bernard or whoever that might be. But I do think Gibson in year 3 is going to get I'm expecting his workload to increase. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, and I mean, he still averaged over 4 yards a carry, again, with the broken shin. When he was healthy in his rookie season, he averaged around 4.7 yards per carry. Yeah. So he's one of those guys where he's not an inefficient runner. And that's the thing is if he continues to get added into the receiving work, he's going to continue to do this. He's a top 12 running back locked and loaded. And I think if he stays healthy, and obviously the questions with the offense, he could be a top 8 to 10 guy or 8 to 5 guy pretty easily.
I hear you. All right, moving on. And this one, I think people are going to hate, to be perfectly honest. It is Saquon Barkley.
Everybody loves to hate him.
Yeah, coming in RB7 and going back to our Najee Harris conversation. When I say there are guys that are more talented, Saquon Barkley is probably a top 2 or 3 running back just in terms of raw talent.
Yeah,
is what he brings to the field. The reason he is coming in at 7, and this is his last stand. It feels like, you know what I mean. Like if he flops again, if the offense is a joke again, Saquon Barkley is going to tumble in dynasty rankings. So he's a very dangerous running back to own right now. But again, injuries have not gone in his favor the last couple of seasons. He's actually going to come in next year fully healthy for the first time in a very long time. They have a new coach. They'll probably make some stupid free agency ads that we think help the offense and don't. But there's just so much that makes him difficult to rank, but he's finishing at RB7, and I don't have a statistical argument for it, but he's RB7 because we know how talented he is. I do not think he has forgotten how to be a good running back. I truly don't believe that. I am putting him up here solely on faith and just believing he has to get back to being the focal point of a team, of the offense, and that's something he hasn't been the last couple of seasons because Joe Judge is a moron.
Right. Well, and I mean, he's like you said, he's another year removed from that really, really bad ACL injury, and he dealt with some ankle injuries as well. So, just having some more time away from the ACL specifically is a big bump for him. Obviously, losing Joe Judge, getting a new coach is another large bump for him.
Maybe dabble.
I think the thing that really is going to be a deciding factor for Saquon, outside of coach and whatever else, is if he can get back to that 60 to 65% of snaps. If he can regularly be playing 60 to 65% of snaps, Saquon Barkley is a top 12 running back. And I think that's not absurd to say. No. He was he was fighting for 50% of snaps this year when he was on the field.
Yeah, so I think weird.
It was super weird usage, and I think they were trying to help him last the whole season. And I get that, but if he comes out into 2022 and isn't seeing 60+% of the snaps, he's gonna be impossible to figure out, because he'll have these blow up games where you're like, that's Saquon. And then you'll have games where he just isn't getting the work to be able to do it. So this is, like you said, this is hopeful ranking of Saquon Barkley. Yeah. If he doesn't do it in 2022, he's going to be right in that low end running back 2 range, depending what goes on, and maybe lower if he can't stay healthy.
Yeah. No, I'm with you again. And I'm usually a very numbers-based ranker. Saquon, I'm just like, look at him. He's really damn good. He should be really
unreal when he plays.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Number 8, we have Dalvin Cook. And from what I've seen, I think we're high on Dalvin Cook. And it's odd because it doesn't feel like it. Putting him at RB8, it feels like we're low on him. But just other rankings around the industry, from what I've seen, we're a little bit higher than most. And here's the thing. Dalvin Cook right now, Kirk Cousins is the quarterback. And as long as Cousins is the quarterback, the offense is going to be above average, regardless what you think of of Kirk Cousins. And if that offense is above average, Dalvin Cook is going to have a great season. That's pretty much what this comes down to. If Kirk Cousins is no longer attached to the Vikings, Dalvin Cook will probably fall outside of my top 10 running backs. And I think pretty easily. So this is a rank of, we know he's talented. The injury concerns, you just learn to live with Dalvin Cook because of the insane ceiling he offers every week. Again, it was a down year for him. He was RB11 in points per game still. And that was with being banged up again and missing time and some, early. If you take out the games he left early, he's much higher than RB11. So Dalvin Cook is still one of the most talented running backs in the game. He is aging, and if you're not contending, you need to trade him. He's going to be 27 to start next season.
Yep.
But on the field, you cannot deny how unbelievably talented he is when the ball is in his hands.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with too much of that. I think the questions are what happens with the quarterback situation there and the coaching staff. If those situations change, Cook will fall down our rankings a little bit, probably.
Yes, he will. I will make sure of it.
Well, yeah, but I think the thing that helps him is that Thielen and Jefferson are locked in, for the next couple of years of his career. And so really, no matter what the quarterback or coaching situation is, having those 2 wide receivers will automatically make life easier for Dalvin Cook efficiency-wise. So I think he's going to inevitably be a top 15 running back in our ranks, no matter what, for the next year or so.
Top 15, yes.
Right. So I think that's the thing to think about. Those situations might change. Maybe we don't produce a video right away if we know Kirk Cousins leaves. But for you guys to know, don't panic on Dalvin Cook if you're a contender. He is one of those guys, like you said, Justin. He's an enormous playmaker. He's one of the best playmakers in the NFL. And he is a guy who deserves to be in this conversation. And I don't think the quarterback for 2022 is going to be a drastic hit for him, just because of what they have at the wide receivers there. And just the team's a little bit of a mess, but I think Dalvin is going to be one of the things that keeps the Vikings relevant.
He has to be, honestly.
Yeah.
And I would just like to say, Marco, I remember this when he came out, was it 5-6 years ago now? Yep. And here we are 5-6 years later, still talking about Dalvin Cook, and you hated the man. And this feels good. We'll start talking about him. He's a great 27 years old.
I was wrong about Dalvin Cook. There.
That's what I wanted to hear. I've waited half a decade to hear that.
I will never let you forget 2 words: Chris Givens.
It's Sam Bradford's fault. All right, moving on. I think it was Bradford. Moving on. We have Alvin Kamara at RB9. And honestly,
This poor guy.
Alvin Kamara, prior to the Sean Payton news, was my RB7 in Dynasty. I bumped him down 2 slots. I mean, Marco, I've kind of taken the last couple to start these, so I will give you Alvin Kamara to start here. What do you have on him?
I mean, it'll be fairly quick. If he is still a New Orleans Saint, he is going to be so difficult to figure out what to do with in fantasy.
It's going to be so annoying.
And right now, like in Dynasty, you can't really evaluate how you should move forward with Alvin Kamara. If you're not a contender, I mean, you can try to trade him, but you need to get clarity of what the situation is, and that could hurt his value or it could help his value. But I think really what's most likely to happen is that the Saints will try to move on from Alvin Kamara. I think that they're going to try to trade him, and that could be awesome for Alvin Kamara owners, or it could hurt you. But I think you have to wait to see what the Saints are going to do before you decide what to do with this guy, because efficiency-wise, he can still do it. Talent-wise, he can still do it. So I think realistically, he is one of those guys who is going to have to lean on what we saw earlier in his career of just being hyper efficient to remain in the top running back conversation. And so I think he's going to be able to do that. He's one of those guys where we've seen him on an awful offense last season, and he was still a very good player.
RB6.
Obviously, there were inconsistencies, but
RB6 in points per game.
What'd you say?
Season. RB6 in points per game last season with who knows what at quarterback.
Right. So I think that is something that you can kind of hang your hat on if you're an Alvin Kamara owner, of like, it almost can it's impossible to get worse, his situation.
You're not going to be playing with a tight end at quarterback, you mean?
Right, exactly. Well, yeah, you're not going to go to Denver and Albert O's going to be the quarterback, you know? So no, but I think really what you need to know with Alvin Kamara is, if you are not a contender, you need to move on this year, but you need to wait for clarity of the situation, because I think inevitably it's going to help, not hurt you. And if it does hurt you a little bit, it can't hurt you much. But when we just talk about what he does as a running back, as a talent, he's a guy, if you're a contender, don't panic for him right now. No. He's still going to be a guy who's going to be that top 10 running back for you. Well, the only hope is that he lands on a team that does utilize running backs well in the passing game, because as a running back,
even if they don't, this year he proved he can still do it on the ground. He, again, prior to this season,
I think that him doing it on the ground can be much more impacted by him going to a new team with bad offensive line play. The Saints, for as much of a mess as they are, they have a decent offensive line.
He was bad on the ground this year, 3.7 yards a carry, but he showed he's capable of handling a larger workload on the ground than he has in seasons past. He had 240 carries in 13 games this year, compared to, his previous high of 194. Again, he had a monster dip in receiving, down to 47 receptions, 67 targets, his first season under 90 targets in his career.
Right.
But he still finished as the RB6 in points per game. So no matter where he goes, I don't think 60 targets, 70 targets is an obscene number for really any offense for the running back if he's going to be your feature guy. So
that's fair. I just think 250 rushes is probably his cap.
He did,
and if he goes to a team, what'd you say?
240 in 13 games, which is crazy for him.
Well, I know that, but I'm just saying, as he's getting older here, I think 250 is probably his rushing cap. And if he ends up on a team with a bad offensive line, that is going, like, his efficiency isn't going to improve at all. So that's why I think he needs to have a ton of value. He needs to have a spot where they're going to throw him the ball. Like you said, if they throw him the ball 60, 65 plus times, that's great. I'm not worried about it. Yeah. And just after 2022, I will be worried about it.
That's a good way to put it. I like it. And moving on to our last guy here, we have Austin Eckler, my guy.
Your boy.
It's so rare to see running backs get older and then continue to climb up rankings. Like, Austin Eckler is the same age as Dalvin Cook and Alvin Kamara. Dalvin Cook and Alvin Kamara are not tumbling, but falling down dynasty rankings, while Austin Eckler went from, 40-something 2 years ago into the top 20, into the top 10 now. And he's just, the thing is, his skill set translates so well to just like long-term dynasty production. Again, he is tied to Justin Herbert. He is the key pass catcher for this team, him and Keenan Allen. He was RB3 in points per game, putting up arguably his best season of his career. And there's really no changes to the situation. The only reason he is not ahead of Alvin Kamara for me is I can't really think of a reason. To be perfectly honest, I might make the change. But like as I'm thinking about it.
I was going to say, I honestly wouldn't hate you if you did that.
All right. Live update. Alvin Kamara, we're too far into this video to restart. So Alvin Kamara is now RB10. Austin Eckler is RB9. Look at that.
Look at that. We did it.
There's no negative in his game. The undersized thing, that got blown away this year. He can handle red zone work. He can handle rushing work. He can handle everything out of the backfield as far as receiving goes.
I thought
the only reason he's here is he's 27.
I thought I saw a tweet the other day that said every single one of his touchdowns were red zone touchdowns.
I hope so. I argued like hell for him all season. I love him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's tied to Justin Herbert. He's tied to a team that is going in the right direction. There's nothing not to like about his situation. And he's getting older, but he's not anywhere you need to panic, He has minimal wear and tear. Very similar to Alvin Kamara, which is they will have long careers. Dalvin Cook, I do not think is going to last as long as these two, just because his type of workload. But Dalvin Cook, I'll always take the traditional runner with receiving upside and big play ability, where Kamara and Eckler aren't really big play threats. They're more great volume plays with touchdown upside. So there's just a difference in how they get their points, and I think that's why I still keep Cook ahead of those two. Yeah, and I will say this. Austin Eckler isn't – I don't think he's going to be RB2 again. I think RB2, he's done it, and I think that's it.
He might be RB1.
He's going to be the RB1. That's what I'm talking about. No, I don't think RB2 is really going to happen. Sure, it's in his range of outcomes. I think brushing up to the top 5, though, is definitely within his range of outcomes for the next couple years.
Yeah.
But I will say that I don't think 2 is happening again.
Who would have thought me having Austin Eckler at RB6 was going to be too low this year? I did not expect it. And
that's what I had. I had Najee at RB5 and people were jumping down my throat and I was crazy.
Love it. Plant your flag on your guys. Like that's the whole point. People don't need to agree with everything you say. Plant your freaking flag. Who cares? You might be wrong. You might not. It doesn't matter in the end. It's fantasy football. But Austin Eckler is a guy, though. I will rank him inside my top 5 running backs this year. I absolutely will do that.
Yeah.
I have no redraft. I have no concerns.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd really be hard. It'd be hard for me to argue that.
Good. Don't. All right, guys, that is it for us here. Again, check out the Patreon page. You get our full Dynasty rankings. The updated ones will be out soon. We've made some minor changes, including on the episode today. But yeah, check that out, guys. Patreon.com/14P Fantasy. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Questions, comments, drop all that stuff below.
If you're looking for 14P gear, drop that below. Maybe we'll make some gear.
We don't have any merchandise, Marco.
But we could.
Maybe. All right, guys. Marco, you have anything else before we?
I don't think so. I think the only thing I'll say is thank you guys for supporting the channel. We hope that you continue to do so, and we can't wait to keep making more content for you. Maybe a draft kit in the future. Check us out later. We'll see you. Peace.
As always, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
How many snaps did they run in the 14 personnel?
That's only for us.
100% of the snaps.